Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, chapter 7. We'll read what is the summary that Srila Prabhupada has given in his book for chapter 7. Chapter 7. So, like I said, so chapter 7 to 12 is Bhakti Yoga. Chapters 1 to 6 is Karma Yoga. 7 to 12 is Bhakti Yoga, and 13 to 18 is Gnana. Okay, so chapter 7 is called Knowledge of the Absolute. Lord Krishna is the supreme truth, the supreme cause and sustaining force of everything, both material and spiritual. Advanced souls surrender unto him in devotion, whereas impious souls divert their minds to other objects of worship. So this is what we will know. We will get knowledge of Krishna as the absolute truth, supreme cause of everything. Sarva Karana Karanam. So after understanding this, advanced souls surrender unto him in devotion, whereas impious souls divert their minds to other objects of worship. Okay, so let's see some key verses from this chapter. Yeah. Okay. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Many thousands among men. There are so many people. There are so many human beings. Men here means human beings. So thousands of human beings. One may endeavor for perfection. What is this perfection? Most people in this material world live for sense gratification. Now few or one may endeavor for perfection, which means that he gives up this life of sense gratification, understands what the goal of life is, and he tries to make his life perfect. So some want to become one with Brahman, um, some want to achieve Ashtasiddhis, and some others want to become devotees of Krishna. So one may endeavor for perfection in any of these routes. Okay, perfection means that at the bare minimum it is mukti, liberation, so that they don't come back to this material world. Now, of those who have achieved perfection, now many people can achieve liberation. Liberation is not very difficult. As in, if you follow the process properly, then we will achieve liberation. Now, of those who have achieved perfection, of those who have achieved liberation, then only hardly one knows me in truth. So Krishna is saying that knowledge about himself, knowing Krishna is very difficult. Hardly one knows me in truth. And in the fourth chapter, Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam yo evam yo veti tattvataha yatvadeham punar janma naiti mameti. So Arjuna. He says, one who understands the transcendental nature of my birth and activities will not come back to this material world after giving up his body, but will come to my abode. So there also there is tattvataha. Here also there is tattvataha. So one has to know Krishna in truth. So there are multiple ways to understand this. First is that we cannot, by our own intelligence, try to understand Krishna. That will not be in truth. It will be our own imagination of Krishna. So, so one is, one has to accept knowledge about Krishna in disciplic succession. That is the first thing, right? So, because acharyas in disciplic succession, they give the knowledge of Krishna in truth because they have seen the truth and they have experienced, they have reached that stage. So such uh, great souls, they give us information about Krishna so we can know. Now, second thing is, if we, unless we are free from the desire for sense gratification, we cannot understand Krishna, because Krishna is not, I mean, see, knowing Krishna also, even if acharyas have given, we have to experience Krishna's presence, and that is a process, right? So unless one seven mukhe jivadaus puram swayameva spuratyada. So unless one engages in devotional service, one cannot still understand Krishna, even if we have read about him. Hmm? So, for example, Krishna says, "Ye yatha mam prapadyanti tam tathaiva bhajamyam." No, we cannot really understand this statement. What Krishna is saying, based on one surrender, I award them. No, this it is we cannot understand what what Krishna is saying here. No, when will we understand? Only when we engage in devotional service, we can understand this. So, like this, even information we might just have knowledge about Krishna, but actually understanding Him in truth, we cannot understand unless we engage in devotional service. Now, the third thing is, like, there are so many aspects which we know only theoretically. For example, uh, form of Krishna. Krishna is, Tribangi. He is bent in three places. Then he is, some say dark color of a dark cloud. Some say he is the color of blue. Some say, so many. And his whole body is compared to lotus. I mean, we can't imagine how can, his feet be compared to lotus feet be compared to lotus. So no, so many ways there are description about Krishna. There's description about spiritual world, about his dharma. No, we cannot understand it at all, right? We have just heard it, but we cannot really understand it, because we've never seen it. We have never seen anything like that in this material world. So that aspect of knowledge of Krishna, we will actually come to know about it only when we reach perfection. When Krishna mercifully reveals this to a devotee, devotee will actually come to know. So, for example, in Bhagavatam first canto, we read about the life of Sri Narada Muni. So, Sri Narada Muni says that I was able to understand Krishna in truth. Mm. Dhruva Maharaj says so. All those devotees who have achieved perfection, they actually understood, yeah, and Bhagavatam says Bhagavat Tattva Vignana, scientific knowledge about the Lord, which means that whatever was just theoretical in our mind, devotees could actually experience the reality of it. So this also happens only when one reaches the topmost stage by the practice of bhakti. So hardly one knows me in truth, meaning so many people say that I know Krishna, I am a devotee of Krishna, but they cannot understand Krishna. And then they ask, okay, what is it? What is the problem? As in, why can't I understand Krishna? Because you are not in parampara, because you are not engaging in devotional service, because you are not trying to control your senses. See, unless one does all these, one has to be part of parampara, one has to be trying to control their senses. One should be under the guidance of a spiritual master. Then, when we achieve perfection, we can actually understand Krishna in truth. Mm. So, we are targeting for the rarest of rare goals, which hardly any people in this material world end up achieving. Hardly. Very, 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 very few people. Because just see how many crores and thousands of crores and crores of people are there. Hmm. How many people are Krishna's devotees? Hardly any. You can count on your fingers. Huh? That is why this whole process of preaching Krishna consciousness is very important. Everybody who can preach, right? Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says every person born in India should preach. Yare dekho tare kaho Krishna Upadesh. Whoever you see, you tell him about Krishna. You say Krishna is the Supreme Lord, please chant Hare Krishna. That's all. And then if they say, okay, why, what, and all that, then you can bring them to other people who can preach. I mean, if you can't preach, but if you can preach more, you can preach, and you should preach, because we have to give the opportunity for other people to come to this stage of knowing Krishna in truth. Mm. So this is very important. Then Krishna talks about how we can understand him, how we can understand him, how he has created this material world. So he talks about all that. about his inferior energy, superior energy, etc. So 7.4. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. So these are Pancha Mahabhutas: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And then this is called, also called, these five things um, form the gross body of the human being also, and also of the whole universe. So the human body is a small, so there's universal body which is of the whole universe, and then there's a single human body. Single human body is just made up like the universal body of these five elements. Okay, then there's mind, intelligence, and false ego, which is called the subtle body, subtle elements. Altogether, these eight constitute my separated material energies. So the whole material world is made up of these energies, and they are separated from Krishna. They are separated from Krishna. They are considered as inferior energies, and they constitute this material world. Now, these um, uh, these are material energies. So, which means these work within the realm of the material world. So, material world is created with these elements, and whoever comes into this material world are also made up of these elements. And it is just, everything is made of the same elements, but it just takes different forms. Like, for example, there can be a skyscraper, there can be a tree. Everything is made up of the same elements. Or a human being, everybody is made of same elements in the material world. The only difference is what kind of body we have got. And that what kind of body we have got depends on what kind of karma we have done. And Bhagavatam also talks about how lower organisms are the food for higher organisms, and so on and so forth. So there are different uh, um, classes of living entities also, but all of them, irrespective of what they are, from an ant to Brahma, all of them are made up of these different material elements, but they're separated from Krishna. Separated from Krishna. Krishna is the source of these energies, but he is not very attached to this. He just lets his energies loose. I mean, he empowers them and he lets them act. He doesn't get involved in the creation, in the running of this material world. Uh, of course, then he has three Gunavataras: Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, and Vishnu is himself. Mm, in a different form, and he is taking care of the mode of goodness in the material world. And we'll talk about those modes very soon. Besides these, Almighty Armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind. So this is inferior energy. These material energies are inferior energies, because they are created and they're destroyed. They are non-living. They don't have consciousness. So they're inferior. There's another superior energy mind which comprises the living entities. So this is us, the jivas, the atma. And we are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So we are given this material world because we wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna. Right? So this material world made of these elements is given for our exploitation, because we wanted to exploit them. We wanted to exploit these resources. We want to enjoy, exploit them, and try to enjoy independent of Krishna. So though we are superior energy, we are trying to exploit the inferior energy, but in trying to do this, we have become like inferior energy. We are bound by the inferior energy. Our need to enjoy this inferior energy is so much that we have fallen in our status from superior energy to inferior energy, meaning we've actually forgotten that we are superior energy. We think that we belong to this material world. We think that we are one of this creation. We are created as to enjoy this material world. Uh, and so, even though we are superior, we have come under inferior control. This is very bad. See, generally, superior energy don't come under inferior energy. Come, like for example, a prime minister will not come under the control of a chief minister, because chief minister is inferior from a political setup perspective compared to prime minister. If the prime minister comes under the control of a chief minister, then he's fallen, as in he's not qualified. Similarly, we fallen jivas, so we are called conditioned souls. There are two kinds of living entities. There is Nitya Siddha and Nitya Baddha. Nitya Siddha are eternally um, perfect beings. They are there in the spiritual world, assisting the Lord in his pastimes. Then there is Nitya Baddha. We are Nitya Baddha. We are eternally conditioned. Eternally means for a long time we have been out of the spiritual world trying to enjoy ourselves and with no success. Hmm. So that superior energies, that Nitya Siddhas are far superior, right? Because they are not fallen from their situation, from their position. But Nitya Baddhas, we have fallen from that Nitya Siddha or the eternal position of being in the spiritual world. We've fallen from that. Why? Because we wanted to enjoy this inferior nature. And now we have got so caught up by the inferior nature that we have forgotten that we are superior. This is the power of Krishna's material energy. Krishna's material energy is so powerful that even superior energy is stuck. So this is very important for us because we have to remember and realizing that okay, I don't belong to this material world. I can't come under the influence of these energies. I'm superior to these material energies, which I'm so attracted to. So, and then we have to give up that attraction because it is just artificial. This is not our real situation. Our real situation is that we are superior and we should be in the spiritual world. So here we have just come here for rectification because we are all prisoners. We all did we committed crime of wanting to enjoy independent of Krishna. So we are here for treatment, punishment. So we can't make this our permanent, uh, place of living. So we should prepare, plan, work hard to go back to our eternal house. Go back home, back to Godhead, Prabhupada says. Okay. So everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So everything, be it the material world, spiritual world, everything is dependent on Krishna. There is nothing which is independent of Krishna. Whatever we see, good or bad, in this material world or in the spiritual world, there's nothing bad in the spiritual world, good or bad in this material world, comma, and the spiritual world. Everything rests upon him. Rest means depends on him. If actually this whole material creation also, Bhagavatam says that when Vishnu is in the process of creating these material worlds, actually all the elements are there, everything is there, demigods are there, have been produced, they have taken birth, everything is there, but nothing is working properly. They can't figure out how to do, what to do. So then the Lord had to empower all of them. Again, he enters into each and every element, all the demigods he empowers. So without him, nothing, tena vina trinamapi na chalati. Literally nothing can happen in this material world. Literally, right? And then there are so many atheists of this material world who think they're so independent that they are doing things themselves. I am doing this, I am achieving this, etc. But impossible. We can't even lift one blade of grass, or move one thing from one place to another without mercy of the Lord. So everything rests upon Krishna. As pearls are strung on a thread. See, this is so nice. Pearls are strung on a thread. What is this analogy? When you see a necklace, pearl necklace, where there's a thread and there are pearls which are hung on the thread, but we can't see the thread. Can we see the thread? No. We will see just the beautiful necklace, beautiful pearls, but we don't I mean, unless of course, if if somebody is very small child, you might think that, oh, how is this, these pearls are they're strung together, what is holding all this? Maybe because they can't see the thread below, behind it, right? So this material world is like that. We cannot see the person behind it. We cannot see Krishna. We cannot see Krishna's hand. Unless we are Krishna conscious, we can't see Krishna's hand. So beautifully he has created. We can't make out that this is a jail. So Krishna is brilliant. He can do all these kind of chintya, like inconceivable things. So he's created it so beautifully, but he's not seen. He's in the background somewhere. Deluded by the three modes. There are three modes of material nature. They are called material nature, which means that anybody who comes into this material world are under the control of these modes. There's mode of goodness, there's mode of passion, and there's mode of ignorance. Deluded. Delusion means bewildered, not able to see clearly. or under the influence of these modes, the whole world does not know me, because anybody who is in the modes have don't have clear thinking. They're influenced by the modes, and the modes have their own influence on the individual, which doesn't let the individual think clearly. Hmm? So no, the whole world does not know me. Krishna is saying nobody knows me. I am above the modes. So people who are deluded by the modes, they cannot know me, because they're stuck within this modes. They can't see anything outside the modes, and I'm above the modes, so they cannot know me. I'm above the modes and I'm inexhaustible, because I'm everything. I mean, there's no end to my opulences. There's no end to my energies. But whole world does not know me, because they're all stuck in the three modes of material nature. So the whole process of bhakti yoga is Traigunya Vishaveda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. To raise above these three modes, any yoga process has to help us raise above these modes. If we are not raising above the three modes, then we are not following a good practice. We're not doing a good sadhana. Mm. So intention is to be able to know Krishna by transcending the modes. So why do we transcend the modes? We should transcend the modes so that we can then understand Krishna. Otherwise, Krishna is saying here that nobody knows me. So we have to know Krishna in truth. So we have to transcend these modes, accept authorities, accept Shastra, and then we can understand Krishna. Okay. Now Krishna is further um, explaining how this material energy, how difficult it is. This divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature. So this material energy consists of these three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. This divine energy is difficult to overcome. I said, we are all in the grips of this material energy to different extents, and it is very difficult to overcome. But who can overcome? Only those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So the whole point is that one has to surrender to Krishna. Hmm. So in the seventh chapter, only Krishna is saying that one has to surrender, or one who has, he's not directly said one has to surrender, but he's saying those who have surrendered, they can cross. So then the question is, okay, if you want to cross, then you surrender. But in the 18th chapter, he says, you surrender to me only. Don't worry. So he gives an instruction to Arjuna. Right. So here he's just saying, okay, this very difficult, this energy to bypass, overcome this energy. But if you surrender to me, you can cross it. If you want to cross it or not, you decide. Hmm? So that is why this Maya, it is called Maya. Maya, it's illusion. We are in illusion. We are stuck in illusion in this material world, and the illusion is so powerful. Actually, Bhagavatam compares this whole material world to a dream. Suppose say we are sleeping and we have a dream. In the dream, everything looks so real. We feel like we are actually there. Yeah, that's how dreams are. We are there. But and in the dream, something might be happening. Some, like Prabhupada always gives this example, saying that a tiger is attacking a man, and the man is shouting, "Help! Help! Help!" But when he wakes up, suddenly he knows, oh, this is a dream. There's no tiger. I'm not in danger. So similarly, we are in the dream of this material world, which means that it is real but not real. Not real because we are in a dream. We are in a dream. We have to wake up from the dream. Mm. But this waking up from the dream is very, very difficult, because it really looks real. Really looks real. As in, it very difficult. We are so, it's so beautifully designed that we literally feel that, yeah, I am part of this world. I am this body. I have to try to enjoy. These facilities are there for me. I mean, creation is such that we cannot escape it. It's so illusory. It creates an illusion, and we believe that this illusion is real and that we have to be here. Yes, there is family. Oh yeah, you should have a nice family, you should have nice children, and then you should earn nicely, you should have a nice retirement, and you should go see places, do this, do that. I mean, before coming to Krishna consciousness, this is all that was there in my head also, because this is what everybody in this material world does. So it's very difficult to even see beyond it, saying that, okay, looks like everybody is doing the same thing. I mean, is this correct? Is this the correct path? Is there something else? We cannot see. We cannot ask that question. We are so stuck up. We're so stuck up because it is Krishna's divine energy. Krishna's energy is extremely powerful because it is empowered by Krishna. So it is very difficult to overcome. But if we surrender to Krishna, then we can overcome. So this Maya basically means thinking of anything as independent of Krishna or not connected to Krishna. That is Maya or illusion. Once we surrender to Krishna, once we understand, okay, everything in this material world is Krishna because everything is coming from Krishna. So then there's no question of forgetting Krishna. There's no question of um, trying to enjoy independent of Krishna because everything is being given by Krishna. Even if we want to enjoy it for our own self, we are taking it from Krishna and trying to enjoy. So we will come to this consciousness and we'll understand saying that, this place is miserable. I mean, because this is a jail, very tough jailer, Durga Devi, very difficult prison, material world, can't get out. Or what can we do? We have to only surrender to Krishna. That's the only option. Then we become serious. But that takes time for different people. It takes different amount of time for us to be completely surrendered, saying that, I don't want this. I don't want to be in this material world. Hmm. How many of us here are extremely clear that we don't want to be in this material world? If we are very clear that we don't want to be in this material world, then we will start living life accordingly. Then the only option is to associate with devotees because that is the only way we can cross over. Because it's alone, it's very difficult. We can't understand. We are bewildered and we can't know whether what to do, what not to do, etc. So we take association of more senior devotees who have experienced some of these things and take their guidance and then move forward. So here Krishna is talking about surrender. Now he says, okay, there are four types of people who don't surrender, and then there are four types of people who surrender. So first he talks about those who don't surrender. Who doesn't surrender? These are miscreants. Miscreants meaning wrongdoers. They do wrong things. And they are grossly. So there are four types. One is grossly foolish, mudha. Then lowest among mankind, naradama, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, maya aparata gnana. Then who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, asuram bhavam ashritaha. They do not surrender to Krishna. Who are grossly foolish, which means that they are just, like animalistic. And they're just animalistic in a sense gratification. They don't want to surrender to Krishna. The lowest among mankind, uh, again, I mean, they are similar, but they don't even know culture, how to live, etc., right? So, not respectable people. Then knowledge stolen by illusion. These are mostly all the intelligent class of people who are like philosophers, poets, scientists. Their knowledge has been stolen by illusion. So stolen by illusion means their knowledge, their intelligence is being utilized in the illusory environment, which means that they are materially oriented, but they cannot understand Krishna or they can't surrender to Krishna. And then who partake of the atheistic nature, really bad people who are living like vikarma, doing very bad things. So these four type, they don't surrender to Krishna. Anyway, we don't focus so much about not surrendering to Krishna. So my description of these four might not be completely accurate. Maybe good to read 7.15 once more. So then there are four kinds of pious men. So these are impious, these are miscreants or bad wrongdoers, right? And then there are four kinds of pious men who begin to render devotional service unto me. So who begin to render, which means that to some extent they have surrendered, which means that to some extent they have accepted Krishna as a supreme, as superior to them. Uh, so the distressed, this is so many people who come into Krishna consciousness because they are in trouble. um, this is good because those who are distressed also, they can either come to Krishna or they can go away from Krishna. So there are many people who are distressed who take shelter of bars and pubs and drinking and other bad things, right? So those are the impious ones. So the pious ones, when they are distressed, they come to Krishna. And they come to Krishna, Vishnu, Supreme Lord, right? And they start to render devotional service. Now, when they start to render devotional service, they have some material desire. So the distress wants to get over his distress. He comes to the Supreme Lord and says, "Only you can help me out. Please take me out of this misery." Vishnu is very merciful. They'll help those devotees because coming to him is pious. As in, only if somebody is pious, they will come to him. So it is anyway the best compared to surrender to demigod or any powerful human being, etc. So this is the best thing for that jiva, that is finally come to Krishna. So Krishna awards that material desire also he will fulfill. He will take away the distress. Mm. Yeah, so many people have experienced this, right? Then desire of wealth, people are in dire trouble. They don't have money, and they need of money, and they come to Krishna, and Krishna gives them wealth. Inquisitive. So some people, they are not, they don't have a distress or they don't have any desire for wealth. But they're just inquisitive. How does this world work? Or who is the supreme power? Is there anything like supreme power? So like this, so they want to understand. They are just very inquisitive. They want to ask. Hare Krishna, who is that? Can you please mute yourself? Okay, so they are very inquisitive. They want to know information. So they come to Krishna. And then one who is Gnani, who is actually Gnani is somebody who already knows, as in he is already gone above karma. He knows that there is a supreme Lord. He's been searching for him, who's the absolute. And he's been searching, searching, searching. Finally comes to Krishna. So these are pious people. Now, all of us, we can look at ourselves and then think which class we belong to. Hmm? Um, I technically all of us would have come through one of these four routes because there's no fifth route. Hmm? So either we could have come because we were distressed, or we came because we were looking for money, or we came because we were just inquisitive, we wanted to know, or because we were searching for the absolute truth, and we came. Right, so mostly people come in one of these ways, and any of these ways, people who come, they're pious. They're very pious, and Krishna is very happy about them. Hmm. And they begin to render devotional service, though this devotional service is called Mishra Bhakti, mixed devotional service, wherein we are serving Krishna with some desire, material desire, which is okay, which is absolutely not bad. However, it can be further purified by not asking anything subsequently. But in the initial stage, this is absolutely fine. Okay, but then Krishna further says, of these four, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. So this last class, Gnani, he is in full knowledge. So he understands that, oh, Krishna is the absolute truth. And then Brahman, Paramatma and all are just partial knowledge of Krishna. Full knowledge of Krishna is Purusha. Krishna is a person. The one who is in this knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service, he is the best. So of these four types also, Krishna likes the Gnanis more. He's saying, for I am very dear to him and he is dear to me. Because I am very dear to him because he's studied everything. Finally, he's come to the conclusion, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. He's come to the conclusion that Krishna is everything. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So this is a very rare soul who comes to Krishna, and who is a Gnani who comes to Krishna. Is very clear that Krishna is Supreme Lord, and convinced he is now engaged in that pure devotional service. Krishna says, I am very dear to him, and he is also very dear to me. It's so nice, right? So uh, we can also become dear to Krishna. That we'll understand in the 12th chapter. Okay, but this is somebody who has come from karma, then gnana, and then who has come to bhakti is very dear to Krishna. Okay. But of course, then he also says that all the other souls are also very great. They're magnanimous. They're very, very great souls. They're not like ordinary, but amongst them, still this Gnani is very dear to me. So this is that. Who is this Gnani? Uh, After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlava. Knowing me to be the cause of all causes, Sarvam. Sudurlabaha. Such a great soul is very rare. So very rarely do people come and completely surrender to Krishna, knowing fully well about Krishna's position. While the other three, the distress, desire of wealth, inquisitive, they will also come to this stage after getting information. Now they will come for with whatever their needs, that will get fulfilled. Then they will come slowly come to understand what is Krishna's position, and then they fully surrender to him. So Prabhupada says that even they can become pure devotees, as in they came with some desire for Krishna, so it's mixed devotion, but they can also become pure. As they associate with pure devotees, they will also become pure. Pure devotees are those who don't have any material desires from Krishna. They just want to serve him for his pleasure. So, so these are the real real valuable souls, or magnanimous souls in this material world. And we should feel so fortunate that we are somehow one of those souls who are trying to surrender to Krishna. And this is the most precious thing in this material world, and very difficult to achieve, very difficult. Just see that one verse we read now. So many might achieve, many thousands of men, one may achieve perfection. Now those who achieved perfection, one may try to achieve perfection, but it's not that they will achieve. Of those who achieved perfection, only one knows me in truth. So we are trying to become this very, very rare soul, okay, who will get out of this material world, go back to Krishna's abode, and then serve him there. Uh, so it's a glorious life, devotion. Life of a devotee is glorious. While we might look at ourselves, compared to our neighbor, our brother, sister, cousin, relatives, etc., and say, okay, same. They're also having problems. I'm also having problems. They're also doing this. I'm also doing this. No, we are very different. We are very different. Externally, we might look, our lives might look similar to others, but internally, we are very, very different. We are trying to do something that they can't even imagine to do, and we are trying to. We are also doing some sacrifice. We are sacrificing. We are doing tapasya, austerities to please Krishna, which is very nice. Which is very nice. People do so much of austerities for their own sense gratification. When before I came into Krishna consciousness, I used to slog like 15 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours a day, working, 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 working like a donkey. Right? For what? For just no idea for what actually. Because money, okay, money come go whatever, right? But position, no, not much desire for position. Something just like a donkey, just work, work, work. Shastra says donkeys, they want some little grass that they can find anywhere. But they think that no, if I work only, then only when my master gives that grass, I will get that grass. So we are like foolish like that, wasting our time, for material, behind material attachment, material achievements. But when we come to Krishna consciousness, we realize, oh, this is so sublime. This is so beautiful. This is the real life. Of course, we'll all experience it. And see, for us to experience this, we should be in the association of devotees. Only then we can understand all this. Uh, that is why we keep somehow trying, tomorrow, Krishna willing, we will go to Melkote and come. We are somehow, trying to give facility, provide everybody to associate with other devotees and understand what it is, what Krishna consciousness is. It is so sublime, it is so sweet, mm, and it is easy to perform. Okay, men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Now, Krishna also talks about saying that you have to surrender to me, don't go to the demigods. Only people with small intelligence worship the demigods. Small intelligence. They really cannot understand. They cannot understand that demigods are not independent. They are not independently powerful. They are just part and parcel of me. They are my, assigned representatives to take care of different, and their energy is coming from me. Their power is coming from me, and they themselves, the demigods themselves, have to die. So their fruits also, whatever they give, is limited and it is temporary. Those worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet, and the planets of the demigods will get destroyed because it is Svargaloka, which is part of the material world. It will get destroyed. But my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Krishna is saying, so don't worship demigods. Respect demigods, but we don't worship demigods. Until unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. So this is one major. Sripad Shankaracharya, he came to give this thought process saying that we are all Narayana, that we are just it is our Leela that we are in illusion, that we are struggling in this material world, that is our Leela. And when we remember, or when we come out of this illusion, then we realize saying that, oh, I'm Narayana. And then there are others who say that Lord doesn't have a form because they are fed up of this material form, because material form is giving too much of trouble. That is, material world as material forms in the way of other people, etc., etc. So they don't want form, and thinking that Krishna also has a form, Supreme Lord also has a form, they say no, 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 he can't have such a form because this form is painful. It is giving us so much of trouble. We are trying to run away from this form. Now, don't tell me that there also there is some form. So they say, no, 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 form is not good. Even no form is good because that is strength, that is power, that is energy. So they say form comes from the no form. Form comes from the formless. But how can form come from the formless? Like, for example, if there is light, does the light bulb come from the light, or does the light come from the light bulb? The light has to come from light bulb. So similarly, the energy of Krishna, which is called impersonal Brahman, has to come from Krishna. How can Krishna come from the energy? Hmm. There is energy and there is energetic. Even in English, any language, Shakti, Shaktiman, is very easy to understand. That if there is Shakti, there is somebody who possesses the Shakti. He is Shaktiman. Shaktiman cannot come from Shakti. So it's a very commonsensical thing, right? But some unintelligent men, they think that I was impersonal before and I'm now assumed this personality. Assumed, meaning temporarily taken this form, and then it will go in course of time. They don't believe that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has a eternal form. They think I'm impersonal. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature. So then Krishna is talking about that he himself has a higher nature, right, which is his personal form. And his lower nature is this Brahman, which is just his energy coming from his body. Says they do not know my higher nature. And this higher nature is imperishable and supreme. It's not like material form. So they don't have to get confused looking at my form and looking at the material forms and thinking that they are alike. No, they are not alike. This is my higher nature. It is imperishable and it is supreme. So those people who say that Krishna, and a lot of these Mayavadis, so they say Krishna took a form, right? Like Krishna, who is Supreme Lord, he's impersonal. He's just energy, and he takes a form. No, but these people also talk very nicely about Krishna Lila, because uh, this form is still for them a way to achieve the impersonal. So they still talk about Krishna Leela, and talk about all these various leelas, etc., and they will talk very nicely, and many people are so attracted by this. But in their hearts they think that, okay, this is just a temporary form. It is an offense. It is an offense to Krishna. So that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't hear from Mayavadis. They might talk very nicely about Krishna or Krishna Leela, but it's not real. As in, they really don't feel like that about him. They think that it's just some temporary form he has assumed. So we should not hear from them. We should hear from devotees. We should hear from devotees who believe that Krishna has a form. that he has an eternal form. We should hear from devotees. Okay. And Krishna is saying, I am never manifest to the foolish and intelligent, no unintelligent. So if some people think that I am that it's my impersonal form that is eternal and this personal form is temporary, I don't never manifest, so they will never be able to understand me. They're foolish and unintelligent because they want to be like that. I will not manifest myself to them, so they will not be able to understand me. For them, I'm covered by my internal potency, so my energies are there, and I will be covered by that, so they will never be able to understand me. Therefore they do not know that I'm unborn and infallible. So they look at me and say, okay, Krishna took birth. Okay, but Krishna doesn't take birth. Krishna just he appears in that way. We cannot think about Krishna like ordinary human being, ordinary person. So there are so many people who have this wrong conception. But when we are talking to them, they'll say, "Ha, Krishna," they'll talk like just like how maybe other devotees speak. But internally, they're very offensive. They think of Krishna as having no form, and it's offensive to the Lord. And so we should not hear from these people. Especially the challenge comes for like local or vernacular languages like Kannada, Telugu, and all that. There will be lot of Mayavadi speakers on the internet who will be speaking Leela, Bhagavatam. They will talk about Bhagavatam. Can they talk about Bhagavatam without understanding or accepting that Krishna as a form? So it is all cheating, and people will get cheated by hearing that. All living entities are born into delusion. Everybody, starting from Brahma to an ant, is born into delusion, into not knowing, that they are Atma, and that they're eternally in the spiritual world, that they should go back, etc. Because everybody is bewildered by dualities. And most important here is dualities arise from two things. One is desire and hate. One is we want something, the other is we don't want something. This is life. I want this, I don't want this. I want this, I don't want this. So everybody is stuck in this. So they're born into this. So that is why it is so difficult to overcome that. Only by constant practice of Krishna consciousness can one actually really come out of this delusion. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion. They can engage themselves in my service with determination. So Krishna is saying, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, so they're the pious people. So they will come to me, because those four types of people, they're pious people. So they'll come to me, and then they will continue. They will come to me, and then they will become more pious, and they will stop all their sinful actions. So they will stop living a sinful life. For example, meat eating, gambling, intoxication, etc. They will give up all sinful activities. Hmm? And as they give up all sinful activities, and they will be freed from these dualities, because they understand that this world is temporary. This world is made up of dualities, but we don't belong to this material world. We are parts and parcel of Krishna. We have to serve Krishna. So they will understand this. So they're not, slowly we become freed from these dualities. Hmm? When we become free from these dualities, then we will serve Krishna with determination. Till then, our determination, our faith might be very fickle or not very strong. But once we continuously practice Krishna consciousness, then we become free from these dualities, hot and cold, black and white. We know everything is for Krishna service. Then we engage ourselves with determination. So Krishna in this chapter says how that devotional service to him is the most important thing, and that uh, if we don't engage in devotional service, then we are caught up by the material energy, which is very difficult to overcome. And we will be stuck. So whatever be the reason, somehow or the other, we have to surrender to Krishna and engage in his service. So this is the first of the 6 chapters on devotional service, which is so nice. Which just every verse practically talks about Krishna, Krishna's energy, Krishna's arrangement for to take us back. So we will hear more about this in the next 5 chapters, and the 12th chapter is so amazing. It's simply so amazing, because it just talks about, actually it gives a very clear target for all of us. How should we live our life? 12th chapter talks about what type of persons are dear to Krishna, and we can make that goal of our life and work towards it. Of course, when we do bhakti, we'll develop all those characteristics there, but we can also put some special effort towards some qualities which we, feel more attached to. We can, yeah, anyway, it's beautiful. It's different devotees, they display different of these different many of these beautiful qualities. So anyway, we'll discuss that in 12th chapter. So yeah, with this I think, oh sorry, two more verses. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They're actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Okay, those in full conscious of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all the methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So this whole process of knowing Krishna, it doesn't have to. It's not like we should have achieved perfection, many years before we give up this body. No, even at the time of death. Actually, Krishna is so merciful that if we have come very close to perfection, of course, if you don't have material desires, then even if there is some sinful reactions that are there, etc., Krishna will take them all away, because without that we cannot go back to the spiritual world. But we might have done some before coming to this, final stage of perfection. We might have done some sinful activities and might there might be some sinful reactions and all. Krishna will take care. He'll remove all that, right? So we should just understand and we should live life in full consciousness of Krishna. That is the important thing. So those in full consciousness of me, which means that each and every moment we should be conscious about Krishna. And those who know me, that means that we have to hear about Krishna from Shastra. We should hear about him from Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. We should, and from devotees, realizations. We should know him. We should try to know him. Who the Supreme Lord. Of course, he is the governing principle of all this material manifestation, demigods, etc., etc. So we should understand and know Krishna. That is the goal of our life. And when we understand and know Krishna, then we understand that we want to, oh, he's such a nice person, I want to be with him. Then we achieve perfection. We go back to him. Okay. Yeah. So I think we'll stop here unless anybody has any questions. Okay, I'll stop the recording. If anybody has any questions, we can discuss. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna.